Welcome back to the Next Big Thing podcast. I'm Diditi, and today I'll be speaking with Dutch doctor Rebecca Gomperts on the state of affairs regarding the decades of war on abortion rights. Following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, the demand to access abortion has surged enormously. Dr. Gomperts has dedicated her life to providing access to safe abortions by defying these anti-abortion laws in different countries. She founded Women on Waves to perform abortions on ships on international seas close to nations where abortions are banned. With Women on Webs and now 8 Access, Dr. Gomperts provides access to medication abortion, connecting women to professionals and shipping abortion pills to those who need them. With her telemedical services, Dr. Gomperts has been a prominent figure for women in accessing safe abortion in the post-Roe world. Such an honor to speak with you today. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You've been in this fight for about more than 20 years now. I want to start by going back a bit. How did you get involved in this?
So after my medical school, I did interns in Africa, and I was actually, there was a French surgeon there that I worked with, and he provided abortions in Guinea, it was. And there it was illegal, and I didn't really kind of got that yet. I just knew that I wasn't supposed to talk about it. But I did see many women coming in heavily bleeding and at the verge of dying because of botched abortions. And then when I finished my school, I became involved in abortion provision in the Netherlands, in a clinic that was actually around the corner from where I was living. And I found it an extremely worthwhile work. It's a big problem that people have that can be solved, pretty easily. And it was also interesting, I found, to work with healthy women of all walks of lives with all kinds of stories. So in that period, I also started sailing with Greenpeace, and then I sailed into countries where abortion is illegal, like Mexico, Guatemala. And I started asking questions to the volunteers, or I went to visit hospitals. And then actually I got really the political awareness about the impact of illegal abortions and the criminal laws on the well-being and rights of women and people with unwanted pregnancies.
Right. Do you ever think, while working on abortion has been illegal before, before, did you ever think there would be a future where Roe would be overturned? And if you did think so, how did you plan for that?
So actually, so I'm not American. So this Roe versus Wade is something that's very much American. If you look at the European landscape, there is no human right to abortion here either. Europe is, it's a little bit like the United States with different states, but in the Netherlands, abortion is still a criminal offense. So even though it is legalized in case when a doctor helps a woman in a clinic with a special license, it's still within the criminal law. And actually that is the case for many countries in Europe. France is one of the countries that totally decriminalized abortion. And so, but that said, since I worked for 20 years now in this field, the human right to access a safe abortion has now been established beyond any doubt by United Nations agreements, by the World Health Organization, by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. All the international human rights agreements are supporting the human right to access an abortion on the terms of the woman. And so the countries that haven't legalized abortion yet, or where it's still a criminal offense, they lag behind. They're behind of where they should go. And so the US, it was there. It had a constitutional right, and it's stepping back. So where the US was recognizing the human right to have an abortion, they are now following, are going contrary to the trend that we're seeing worldwide, where abortion is being decriminalized, where it's legalized, and where women's rights are respected. And I think what we can say about the US is that it's the same trend what we see in other autocratic regimes. So where the regimes where you look at kind of dictator-like figures that are leading the country, like Putin, is also rolling back abortion rights. In Hungary, abortion rights are rolled back. In Turkey, in Poland, and in China. And so I think if we look at this development in the US, it's actually a really worrisome trend that is really connected with the decay of democracy in these countries.
Like you mentioned, states, well-developed countries like states are going into repression when it comes to debate about abortion and bodily rights. So what are the concerns of criminalization of abortion for not only women who are seeking them, but for abortion providers such like yourself?
But I think that the concern is, first of all, that, so let me say that since if you were talking about Roe versus Wade, and now things totally changed, right? There are abortion pills since the late 1990. It was first registered in France. In 2000, it was registered almost everywhere in Europe. In 2004, they became available as generic drugs, mostly produced in India. So the world is now, abortion pills are everywhere. You can't stop this anymore. And the World Health Organization supports home use of abortion pills by women themselves. Self-managed abortion, it's called. And women can do it. I mean, if they have the tablets, they will be fine. They will be safe. There won't be, they will be okay, and they can do it. This is something that we really have to recognize, and this is a huge change from before, when there was only surgical abortion, where people had to rely on skilled providers that were what helped them. No, you don't need anybody. You just need the pills and information how to use it. That's it. So, and I think this is a revolution, and it's really very empowering for women and for people with unwanted pregnancy, that they understand they don't need healthcare providers. What happens, though, with making abortion illegal is something else. And that is that, first of all, it creates an inequality to who can find this resource and who can't. People that are, very internet savvy, that understand how to search the internet, they will always find the pills, no problem. It's the people that are not, that are on the other side of the digital divide, that are not educated, that are illiterate, that don't understand very well how the internet works, they will probably not find this resource. So it creates a total inequality that is affecting, as always, the poorest people, the people with illiteracy, and the most vulnerable people. And that is very problematic. Now, the other thing what also happens is that it's really creating a huge stigma. And that is also what we saw in other countries, and also now in the US. The moment that abortion becomes criminalized, people are scared. They internalize the fear. They don't talk about it anymore. And this is extremely harmful because it is it's causing an experience that can be very relaxing and very okay into one is that is that is embedded into anxiety, and especially because people don't really understand the laws. The women think they are criminalized, that they can go to jail. And often that's not the case. In the US, in the United States, many of the states, they don't criminalize the women, they just criminalize the providers. In Poland, that is also the case. The women are not criminalized, but the providers. But people don't really know it. And so the other thing is that people that are helping them, aiding and abetting, they're also criminalized. So, for example, some of the groups in the United States, they don't even dare to give information anymore about the availability of medication abortion, because they're afraid that they can be prosecuted by groups that want to go after them. And these are the really harmful effects of these laws.
I just want to take a step back and talk about medical abortion. Like, can you go in depth about how that works and how Aid Access in particular has helped these women, and how the process of getting medication from Aid Access works?
Okay, so actually, I'm participating in two organizations, and I think it's important because Women on Web is actually a Canadian organization, and it was the first telemedical abortion service that existed. It's already there since 2005, and it helps women from all over the world. So it's very simple. In order to be able to provide medications, you need to know whether there are contraindications, as we say. So you can just ask these questions. So women go online, they fill in a questionnaire where we ask if there's anything that might be a contraindication for them to use the medications. And actually, that is hardly ever exists. I mean, in the sense that there is no reason why you cannot use the pills, basically. But it's good. You always, as a doctor, you need to have all the medical information of somebody. And then if the help desk is asking for donation or payment, if people cannot afford it, it's around $105. Aid Access is, Women on Web is 95 or so. And if people cannot afford it, they get it for free. They get it donated, or they get a reduced donation. So because we think that anybody should be able to access abortions when they need it. It shouldn't be that you cannot afford it, that is the reason why you have to carry the pregnancy to term. And so, and about 10% of the services usually are donated because people cannot afford it. Then the help desk that is specially trained, they review the consultations. If there's any medical questions, medical issues, there's doctors that are supervising. If everything is okay, then the people get a prescription, and the prescription is filled by a pharmacy. Depending on the country, it will be different places. In the US, it's a pharmacy, either in the US or in India. And then the medication is shipped to their home address. They get a tracking number so that they can follow when the medication arrives.
So how does this pill work? Like, how do you know that you've got rid of the pregnancy?
Okay, so how it works is the mifepristone is blocking the hormone that is required to keep the pregnancy intact. Then the second tablet, so you need two types of tablet. The second one is misoprostol, and that's causing the contractions of the womb. So that is used 24 hours after taking the first pill, and then women start getting cramps, which can be, by the way, pretty bad. It's not very pleasant, but you can use painkillers, and that usually makes it bearable. But that takes a few hours. Then the bleeding starts, and people get a bleeding like a menstruation, or more than a menstruation. And the bleeding can last from 7 days to a few weeks when the bleeding is less. So it's very similar to a miscarriage or to a menstruation. And what is very important is that somebody does a pregnancy test after 3 or 4 weeks to make sure that it works, because in 1% of the cases the medication doesn't work, and the way to know is to do either an ultrasound or to do a pregnancy test.
Can you overdose on this medication?
No, you cannot overdose. And by the way, the medication is given in a set so that you have enough medication. Aid Access ships, the pharmacy ships 1 mifepristone and 12 misoprostol. And the way that women use it is they swallow 1 mifepristone, 24 hours later they use 4 misoprostol under the tongue, and then they repeat 2 tablets every 3 hours, depending on how long they're pregnant. And that is the maximum dose that is given, and that is never causing any overdoses. No, there's no problem there.
Dr.
It's extremely safe. So I want to say that, and that is not me that says this, it's the many very reputable organizations. The abortion pills are safer than over-the-counter painkillers. So the safety profile is so high, you cannot compare it with anything that is even available over the counter.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to go back to the point where we talked about how people who are educated and people who have money have access to these privileges of getting abortion whenever they can. How can we develop a solution for low-income families who don't have access to healthcare or like education or internet, for example?
Well, I think that a big role there can be played by, for example, local women's rights organizations, labor rights organizations, other groups that are actively involved with these kind of groups to share the information that this is available. And of course, it's a problem. So healthcare access is also a problem often of affordability. So we try to, because we make the medication also available for free for those who cannot afford it. That is one part that we overcame. So it's not that if they don't have money, that shouldn't be the problem. And of course, community centers can, for example, help people who have low literacy problems or that are illiterate, can help them fill in the online consultation, for example. So I think support networks are extremely important to reach people that are most vulnerable.
It's inevitable to argue that we live in a world where we can't access anything without money. And one can also argue that abortion services are just a form of business and these unborn babies are a commodity. So who is it really benefiting and what is your reaction to that?
Who is benefiting what? You have to...
From having and providing these abortion services.
The women are benefiting. They are the ones really, because these are the people. Nobody else has to carry the pregnancy to term and take care of a child. So when these women decide, or pregnant people decide they don't want to be pregnant, that's what should happen. They shouldn't have to be pregnant, and it's our responsibility to make sure that they have access to the services that they need. And there are studies that have shown that people that cannot access abortion services, they are much more likely to remain in situations of extreme poverty and domestic violence. So abortion really helps people to take control over their lives again and to be able to, to make a life, to climb out of poverty, to make sure they don't have to stay in abusive relationships. It's fundamental to a woman's or a pregnant person's life that they can control this situation and take charge of their own future and be able to achieve their potentials. But that's only possible. I mean, I have 2 children. I love them dearly. But really, and all women that have children, that want children, they want to be able to give everything to their child what they can, because that is what that is what they want. But if they can't take care of them, and if they can't have a child, then that is a situation that we have to respect. And again, the only person that it really affects is the pregnant person.
Even with pro-abortionist or anti-abortionist, there are different types of supporters. Some support abortion if it's in the case of rape or incest, or if the woman's life is in danger. It gets selective at times. Is that where it's like? Why is it like limited to some people? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's an inconsistency in the thinking. So because if there's only two positions, right? One is either you say a fetus has a right to life and it's an own entity, or you say I trust women to make this decision about their own lives, and they are the ones that are in charge of this. There's nothing much in between. But if you say that the fetus is the one that has the rights, then it doesn't matter how the pregnancy came to existence, whether it's rape, incest, or even if the woman's life is at risk. So, if the consistent thinking there would be that it would always be banned, and not in these exceptions. But of course, that is not how we humans work, because there is compassion, and so what it does, it's like other people deciding, well, this would be an acceptable abortion and this wouldn't. But it has nothing to do with the moral status of a fetus in that sense. And I think that is why also it's not up to anybody else what is the decision of a woman or what is the reason why she can't carry a pregnancy, and so that is why I say there's only one position that is the right one, which is this is only something that a woman can decide, and the only thing that I can do is to support her in that decision and trust her.
What about cases of femicide? I know in some countries, when you can tell the gender of the baby, there's pressure. If it's a woman, if it's a girl baby, there's a pressure from the family member to drop that baby because they want a boy. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that problem is caused by that is a problem caused by another situation, by society. So if you want to solve that, then you have to make sure in that society that women are valued more. And you do that by education, there's many other things that you can do. Banning abortion in those cases won't make a difference. It won't help. What it will do, it will drive the abortions underground, it make them more dangerous, and it won't help anybody. So this is a problem that has another root cause. And if you want to solve it, you will have to solve the root cause. And that has to do with how women are valued. And actually, the ban of abortion also says something about how women are valued, that they're not valued. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I want to kind of divert the conversation into media's role in censorship of abortion pills that was followed by Facebook and Instagram after the Supreme Court's ruling. So there have also been instances where social media media businesses might be selling the data. Like if you search abortion clinic on Google might sell that data to prosecutors who are looking into it. So what kind of role does the media play in the censorship of getting access to abortion?
Well, actually, there was a court case where the Facebook released the communication between a woman and her daughter on the request of the public prosecutor. Well, I mean, there's many issues there. I mean, on the one hand, internet and social media and all these things, they give us the world, right? It's like you could not have found so much information that you can find now. You won't be able to find so easy before that existed. And on the other hand, it's private companies that control what kind of information you get. But that is with Google as well. Google algorithms, for example, they decide where your website is, where you can find your website, and that is a form of censorship. They're mediating access to information. So this is something that we should all be concerned about. So you could argue that these companies, there shouldn't be private companies. They should be totally open access, that in the hands of people themselves, not even governments, because governments control it as well. I mean, China controls access to the internet constantly, but also, for example, Spain censored the Women Web website. And we went to court, we won the Supreme Court case, so now it's available again. But yeah, so information, of course, is key, and censorship has been from all times. And we just have to be aware of it, that is not different in the time of social media. And what people can do, they can use other web browsers, for example, the Tor browser, Onion, or Brave. I mean, there's many, or DuckDuck, that are not participating in those things.
So lawmakers and politicians and these business owners, majority of them are men, and they're simply making these decisions for women's right to choice, whether it's if you're supporting abortion, if you're not supporting abortion. It comes down to the lawmakers and politicians at the end. So why do you think this fight against abortion or for abortion has become so political?
Well, it has always been political. And in the end, I think it has to do that when you control women are determined in population size in governments. And population size is linked directly to economic prosperity and other things. I think that is one of the reasons. For example, if you look at countries like Russia and Turkey, and when they're banning abortion or they're restricting abortion access, or even in the US, there's always another motive, which is obvious.
All right. Thank you for that. And since we're kind of short on time, I just have one more last question. Since the overturn, people have been protesting day and night, whether you be from either side of the spectrum. How can we, as a collective human being, create spaces to align our views? And what are your plans moving forward with Women's Own Waves and AIDA Access?
Well, I think that so one of the things that everybody can do is to reach out for people that need help, and to support them in navigating the landscape. So make yourself familiar with what's out there, and for example, a website like Plant C Pills has all the resources so that people can decide what they want. Do they want the abortion pills? Do they want to travel to another state? So that is one thing, and so it's really one-on-one support. But for example, also in Canada, there's still a lack of access to abortion services, even though telemedical abortions are allowed. There's not enough doctors willing to do it. So it's talking with GPs, providers, doctors, or even aligning yourself and say, hey, these abortion pills have to be available over the counter. It should be in any pharmacy, in any drugstore. It should be available on the request of women whenever they want it and however they want to do it, because that is the safety profile from these medications. So I think that is something where the abortion rights groups can start gathering and mobilizing and start petitions and talking with people and trying to mobilize again. Because when it's in the pharmacy, the moment it's in a drugstore, over the counter, that it can't be controlled anymore, and then it's just in the hands of women, and that's where it should be.
Mm-hmm. All right. With that, we've come to the end of our conversation with this little time. It has been a pleasure to talk to you, Dr. Gomperts. And thank you for listening to our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. And today I've been talking to Dr. Gomperts, and this is Diditi Kadil for Next Big Thing magazine.